What is up, Sleepers fans? Welcome into another post-game recap. I'm Matt. He's J-Man. We're talking Duke basketball here, and I'm just saying Duke basketball because there's really not much to talk about on the Stanford end of things. Sorry, Cardinal fans. Duke wins 80 to 50, and this one is always brought to you by the Midwest Best Coffee, Tinker Coffee. Go to tinkercoffee.com. Use our promo code or discount code, whatever you want to call it, Sleepers, for 15% off your first order. And if you set up a recurring order, you can get an additional 25% off in addition to that Sleepers discount. It is the actual best deal in coffee. The Cardinal could have used some coffee in this one because they looked flat. I think they were happy with their split between UNC and Duke. They said we got our win from the Carolina boys here and just kind of rolled over. J-Man, what was your take on this win for Duke?
Well, the defense played a complete 40 minutes. The offense played a full 40 minutes. It's
Yeah.
probably the most complete win Duke's had in, I don't want to say all year because I'm sure there is one, but in a long time. Like
Yeah.
where I was just like from start to finish, Duke was the better team. There was no slow start. They came out from the jump, looked like the better team on both ends. And
Mhm.
simply put, one team had Cam Boozer, the other did not. I mean, Cam Boozer had 30 points on 12 of 17, 2 of 3 from three, 14 rebounds, half of them were offensive. And oh, by the way, one block and 3 steals. Like it was just a Cam Boozer dominant performance from beginning to end.
100% agree. The bigs are the story in this one. We'll talk about Isaiah Evans and some of the guards here a little bit, but I thought Boozer was great. But honestly, I thought this was a good Gungba game. I thought Malik Brown was good. The passing from the bigs in this game, they absolutely dissected this Stanford defense. I mean, like Gongba made one of the best like high post passes I've ever seen for a cutter, and it was just like, okay, dude, if they're doing this and like Malik Brown is throwing like 20-foot bounce passes to guys cutting to the rim. You're going to be really hard to beat. And just talking about Boozer for a second here, poor Donovan Young for
Yeah.
Stanford. Like he gets the matchup early because Chisholm Akpar was out, like we talked about in the preview. And he just got absolutely big boyed twice. Boozer hit him with a spin, then he hit him with a little shoulder dip. And they were like, okay, cool. We've seen enough. Donovan, thank you for your service. You're going to play 11 total minutes. Oscar Hilte only played 11 minutes in this game. Like the real true bigs for this team, there was nothing they could do with any of the Duke big men.
Yeah, I mean they couldn't. I mean Duke had where did it go? I just lost it in my notes here. The points in the paint is what I'm looking for. Duke had 44 points in the paint and Stanford only had 20. Duke had 25 layup attempts in
Mhm.
general. They were getting anything they wanted to. Cam Booz obviously had 30, but Pat Gungba, I was looking up like his free throws. It feels like he always settles, not settles in a bad way, but
Sure.
like the stats show that he shoots like 4 or 5 field goal attempts. Like, wow, I wish he would have shot more, but he went to the line eight
Yeah,
times.
he
So
was
it's like
pretty
that's
aggressive.
why.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he has those games where he will go 2 for 3 with 14 points because he goes to the free throw line. And
And in 17 minutes, by the way, it was nice to just give him kind of a night off, get a little cardio in the first half, and then he was good to go.
yeah, and just the bigs were dominant, but the key for me, man, is Dame Sarr. Like he is the guy that's going to be Duke's X factor for this season. That's simply put. We know what Cam Boozer can give you night in, night out. We see what Isaiah Evans is giving you night in, night out, being a first team All ACC type performance night in, night out. Now, Dame Sarr, here's just some notes for what he's done defensively. Ibuka Okori had 9 points on 3 of 9, 1 of 5 from three, had 4 turnovers. Last game, Dede Ames had 8 points on 3 of 11, 2 turnovers, had 0 points at halftime. And then Ryan Conwell at when they played at Louisville in the second half, when Dame Sarr was the guy guarding him for all 20 minutes, 3 for 8, 0 for 4 from three, and 3 turnovers in the second half. Dame Sarr has given up 67 points this year on 104 possessions. That's 0.644 points per possession. That grades out as excellent, Matt. And then lastly, guys are shooting 32% when guarded by Dame Sarr, 25 of 79 with a turnover rate of 20.2%. The guy is a freak on the basketball. Like
That's
he
elite.
is.
Yeah.
It's crazy how good he is defensively. And if he can just not not ruin things, but pick the right spots offensively. And he did that in the second half of this game, played double digit minutes for the first time in a long time in the second half, played 28 minutes total, the second most this season, besides the 29 he played against Texas in the season opener. Then Duke has reached a new level with Dame Sarr being a consistent factor night in and night out.
Yeah, just really good. And you mentioned the offense, like it didn't really matter because they were getting everything else they wanted offensively. So even though he doesn't do much in this particular one offensively, like you said, it doesn't hurt them in any way, and that's probably just good enough. Like he did have the two turnovers. They were kind of like, all right, man, like maybe just settle in here a little bit. He gets them out of the way in the first half. Second half didn't add much, but was just smooth. Didn't even attempt a shot in the second half, but just kind of went with the flow, and that's fine.
That's perfect. That I'm glad you said that. The second half, he had no points on no shot attempts, but he had a plus minus of plus 10, second highest behind Isaiah, plus 12. Because you're out there to guard. And then if
Yeah,
you can find a crease offensively, go attack it. And I'm perfectly fine with that stat line of him not having a shot attempt in 10 minutes because I know that he's playing his ass off on the defensive side of the ball. And also, he could have played more than 10 minutes, but Duke was up by a
didn't
billion
matter.
that the
Yeah,
walk-ons came in at the under 4 minute timeout. And I'm like, okay, that's a perfect night off. And
yeah,
so Dame has just I I call him like crypto coin. Like he can go up 20% or down 20% at any given time in a game
yeah.
with his stock. And he's been magnificent for Duke defensively as they've been searching for answers after that 3.5 game play defensively. Dame Sar has been the guy that has shown up night in, night out. And so I'm proud of Dame, and it just adds to this team's what they're capable of when it comes to March.
I do think when you play better teams, that's not going to work, where he's just kind of getting cardio offensively. Like Boozer had so much gravity for everybody in this game. Like it didn't matter that one dude was a total non-factor because they needed multiple guys just to slow Boozer down. I think when you play even the better ACC teams, like I don't know if you'll be able to get away with that for quite the same level. But I agree on a night like this, just don't do anything that could give Stanford like a little like breathing room or a little opportunity to get back in this game here. And I don't know, it just it was interesting too. Like I actually thought this was a pretty good Caden Boozer game. Like didn't do a ton, but they didn't really have an answer for him. I thought he was kind of dealing out there. He only finishes with two assists. That felt low. Like there must have been some hockey assists because I felt like the ball moved particularly well when he was out on the floor. And I don't know. I felt like Caleb Foster had been doing pretty good things offensively, and he goes 0 for 5 in this one, and it didn't really matter at all. But I didn't feel like he forced things too much. Maybe a shot attempt or two you'd like back, but it's like okay, 0 for 5, not my night. I'm just gonna try to play defense, and we mentioned those like actual decent shooters for Stanford. Like they've got dudes who can knock down shots. Benny Geeler goes 0 for 2 from three. Ryan Agarwal goes 1 for 2 from three. Like I mean, they didn't have anybody have a particularly above average night other than Jeremy Dent Smith, who we talked about a lot in the preview for a guard that's averaging like 7 points a game. But he was the best player for Stanford in this one. And I felt like Duke was perfectly content to be like, all right, backup guard, do your thing. You're not going to beat us by yourself.
Yeah, Duke had one simple game plan. It was eliminate Okori and you win the game.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They had Dame on him, and then anytime there was a ball screen or anything, if it was Malik Brown, he was blitzing it. If it was Cam or Pat, they're getting up but not fully blitzing, but not also in drop. So he couldn't just
Hmm.
step into a three. And so Okori, like I said, he had 9 assists when he had 34, 36 points
Yeah.
against UNC. So he's looking to facilitate too, but he only had 1 assist because the guys, his help, were rushing their shots because Duke was still going after him. Like once Corey got the ball out of his hands, Duke did a really good job of rotating. Sometimes Stanford had open looks, but
Hmm.
it's it's hard to knock those down when you're rushing the process in your head
Yeah.
because it feels like you're seeing ghosts out there from previous possessions. Because Stanford had some clean looks every now and then, but they had 18 turnovers. So it's just like, oh my God, am I really open? Where's Malik Brown? Is he going to poke it away from me? Where's Caleb
Exactly.
Foster? Is he going to poke it away from me? And that's kind of what it looked like that Stanford was never comfortable in this game at all. And
Mhm.
that's just a credit to Shire and the coaching staff and the players executing the game plan to damn near perfection.
Yeah, it was. I always harp on this too. It's like you can live with a team having a couple clean looks as long as you can kind of dictate who the guys are getting those clean looks. And this one, Cameron Grant is the guy that ends up with a couple of those clean looks for Stanford, and he's a 22% three-point shooter on the year. So if you're Duke, like you've drawn that up to a T, like we'll let this dude shoot until his arm gets tired, and if he makes two or three of them, like maybe then we'll adjust. He finishes 1 of 7 from three for the game, 1 of 8 overall. And if you're Duke, you're like, cool, thank you for playing exactly into what we wanted you to do.
Matt, I'm glad you brought that up because that was Duke's game plan against Louisville and Ali Khalifa. And
Yep.
then he goes out there and goes
Right.
5 for 5, a
Yep.
23% 3-point shooter, knocks down four in the first half. That's how Duke treated Grant. And
Mhm.
that's the result that normally happens is
Yep.
a bad 3-point shooter misses 3-pointers. And credits to Ali Khalifa. But the 1 of 7 from three, I'm glad you brought that up because that was the game plan Duke had against Louisville. And so it's nice to see Duke take care of business. To like you could have said either Cal or Stanford could have been a sleepy spot. Really, the Cal game since I was 11 p.m. tip here, so their body clock was really affected. But at least this was the Stanford game was 6 o'clock tip. I should have said there an 11 o'clock Cal tip. But you know what I'm trying to say. It was a late
Mhm.
tip for the guys, their body clocks
Yep.
in Cal, and so. I'm just proud of Duke the way that they prevailed in this game and they led the whole way. Like the whole way. There wasn't like Duke was down 6-2 and were playing good
Yep.
defense, couldn't buy a shot. It was from the beginning that they just dominated this and forced turnovers, got points off turnovers, bench points. They had 19. Did they have any transition? Fast break points, zero. This
Yep.
team just doesn't score in fast break. That
Yep.
is like the one thing. But you know what? When you win by 30, you'd have -4 fast break points. I don't care. A 30-point win in conference play is a 30-point win.
They also only allowed 5 fast break points, and we talked about this on the preview. You should either really speed this team up or really slow them down, and they went the really slow them down route, and I thought that worked perfectly to their advantage, allowed them to play to the sides like we talked about, and I don't know. This is as comprehensive as a win as you're going to have in ACC play. They outshoot them from the field by 20%. They outshoot them from the 3-point line by 16%. They outshoot them from the free throw line by 11% and make 14 more free throws than they do. They had 8 less turnovers. They had 6 more rebounds. Like you mentioned, the fast break points is the only thing where there's a mild edge for Stanford, and it's 5-0. And then points in the paint, 44-20, like we talked about. Like that's just as clean a box score as you can have as a team. And I don't know if you're a Duke fan watching this and you're like, well, it's just Stanford. Like, I don't know. Duke fans are probably locked in on everything Carolina does, so you know they just won that game. But like, there are some respectable pieces on the Stanford team. They're not going to finish in the top half of the ACC standings because they're not deep enough. But I think this is a team that could beat like literally anyone else in the league on any given night if they're making shots. If a Corey can get in the defense, Duke had the perfect game plan for them and was just able to just manhandle them physically. So you got to feel really good about this one overall, I think.
Yeah, I mean they're coming off a win against Carolina where they could not do any wrong offensively, and
Yeah.
a Corey like a month ago I'd have been terrified
Yeah.
of what he could bring to the table with Duke having uncertainty defensively.
Hmm.
So for Duke to just really eliminate him immediately, and Kyle Smith is a hell of a coach. I
Yeah,
love
for
Kyle
sure.
Smith. I think he is one of the more underrated guys in college basketball because he does so much more with less.
Hmm.
And if he can ever get the financial help at Stanford, he's going to do big things there. So I like him. I much respect to him and his team. It just you ran into the best team in the ACC right now, and that's Duke. And Matt, I want your take on this because I said this, I think, in my film breakdown of this game, and I don't try and mean to say this like in a biased way, but I feel like this Duke team is somehow underrated, like under the
Yeah.
radar nationally.
Hmm.
Like when we talk about really good teams, it's Michigan and Arizona, and rightfully so.
Sure.
Maybe a couple more, but it's always like when I see Duke, they're giving Duke like the first two seed in these
Yeah.
mock March Madness brackets. I'm like, well, Duke has the best resume on paper, I think, or at least one of the best
Yeah. Up
resumes on
there.
paper. In the one loss, they were up 19 to Texas Tech, who's a really good team. They lost the game by one on a neutral site. So I just feel like this team now is kind of flowing under the radar.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think it's one of those things where it's just this team isn't as flashy or splashy or whatever word you want to use for it, maybe even as last year's Duke team or those other teams at the top here. Like when Michigan was beating everybody's brains in, they were very loud about it. And Duke is like beating Stanford by 30 in a West Coast game that nobody watched because it was after all the national media guys went to sleep. So there's just easier to write games off like that, I think. And you see Carolina lose a couple games that they shouldn't lose on paper, and then Louisville hasn't had Mikel Brown. So it's like, is the ACC really that good, or are their wins as meaningful? Meanwhile, you've got UConn, who looks really great on paper, but they just beat Georgetown by 2, and they're playing in a weak Big East. So is that really any more impressive than what Duke is doing to these ACC teams? Like I bet Stanford would finish in the top quarter of teams in the Big East, probably, or at least top half. And Duke's out here beating them by 30 right after beating who I think is a respectable Cal team, too.
Yeah, and I guess too, the narrative for Duke is they've beaten some teams without their best players, like obviously Kansas without Darren
Sure.
Peterson, and then Mikael Brown with at Louisville and whatever. But
Can't control that, man. And Ewing
can't
theory,
control it.
like you still got to beat those teams.
Yeah, can't control it, and those variables bring up different variables you have to counter, like you have to be
Yep.
prepared for. And that was, and Jaden Toombs for SMU, he stepped
Mhm.
up when Boopy was out, and so I guess that's you can run with that if that was like your take of why Duke is not legit, which I'm obviously not going to hear that because I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and
Sure.
Duke has Cam Boozer and Isaiah Evans has been, like I said, first team All ACC caliber with Dame Sarr being, if he could play 25 plus minutes here on out, he's ACC Defense Player of the Year in my eyes, and I'm
Mhm.
not just living in the moment. He's done it all year, just kind of more in a spotty spots, but if he
Mhm.
can do that consistently and take away the best guard on a team, yeah, the guy should be ACC Player of the Year or ACC Defense Player of the Year and at least first team All ACC defense. So, or first team, you know what I'm saying? Defensive All ACC team. I don't think there's two teams in that, but I really like what this Duke team's doing, man. And I they play Wake at home next, I think, and I'm looking forward to that as well because Dame Sarr against Duke Harris is going to be
It'll be
a
fun.
fun matchup to watch.
I think the other thing with that too is like I mentioned the not flashy or splashy or whatever you want to go. Like this Duke team is like kind of boring in a good way. It's just like let's continue to feed it into the post over and over again until Cam Boozer does something or he kicks it out to somebody else or he steps out and like nothing he does is particularly loud from like an individual play perspective. Like Caleb Wilson is like spin move, baseline spin move dunking through three people, whereas like Boozer is like, like a little baby hook over somebody that shouldn't be able to guard him anyway. And I think they maybe like people see the results and it's just like, all right, I'm not really gonna watch this Duke team. So you still have like some of those narratives that linger for people like, oh, like who's the point guard? They don't really have a point guard, or is Isaiah Evans too up and down? Like I think it just becomes easier to dismiss some of those things that were questions that I think we've largely gotten answers to so far this season. I got one more thing that I thought about while watching this one, and it hadn't really occurred to me. All of these teams have travel partners essentially. Boy, does it suck for these West Coast teams to have to play Duke and Carolina as travel partners together. Like those two together hadn't really clicked for me. And I know Carolina had a terrible West Coast trip, but just in general, that is a big like emotional moment on a schedule to play either of those teams and to have to play them both in like a 3 day stretch. I think is a lot for those guys. So kind of sucks to be them, and I think it worked to Duke's favor and not quite as well to Carolina's favor in this one.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Especially if you're a Stanford or Cal, it's like, all right, we're going east. Here's a 5.5, 6 hour flight. And by the way, we're playing at Duke and
Yeah,
the Dean Dome, which great Instagram pictures, great Instagram videos, a lot of likes on social media. So
yeah,
that's a good part
that's a
of it.
win.
But and you play in Cameron, but and you can eat some wine or you can eat some cheese and drink some wine at the Dean Smith Center with the wine and cheese crowd they have there. But I had to throw some digs on
You
a
got it.
pro
You got to
Duke.
get a
I
couple
gotta
in.
throw on a pro Duke recap. I gotta throw some digs
Absolutely.
there. But yeah, so it is really cool to have those experiences, but it's a grueling schedule to go East Coast whenever they have to do that to go to Duke, Carolina. But in all, though, dude, I'm very proud of this Duke team. I'm very happy in this moment to be a Duke basketball fan, Matt, because Duke football, we have no quarterback, and so I have to lean heavily into this Duke basketball team the rest of the way.
I dig it. I mean, hey, we'll take it. Being good at something like this is good enough for me. I'd write off all other sports if my teams had a top three team in the country or whatever you are. Let us know in the comments if you think this is a one seed as of right now, and we'll be back to cover more Duke basketball throughout the season here on Sleepers Media.